babes, legs, trains, cigarettes, violence, and John Krasinski? Get your bikinis, folks, we're going to California! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 10 Golden Frames, the show where we break down 10 frames from classic films of Hollywood's golden age and figure out what makes them great. I'm your host, Matt Caridi. Today's film comes to us from 1946, starring Lana Turner and John Garfield. It is The Postman Always Rings Twice, the story of a youthful hobo and the hottest housewife of all time who quickly fall in love and quickly plot to kill her husband. This movie is the consummate noir. It executes all the traditional tropes in the most elegant fashion. It is a masterpiece. So without further ado, let's get into the pictures. Do you feel it, folks? It's the sexual tension, and it's fantastic. This is Cora Smith, played by Lana Turner, applying lipstick, Frank Chambers, played by John Garfield, ogling and keeping it cool simultaneously. Our eyes are immediately drawn to the brightest point in frame, which just so happens to be Lana Turner's crop top miniskirt situation. And that doesn't make us sleazy for looking, that was the director's intention. We're meant to gawk at Lana's figure in this frame. She is a goddess after all. So by placing the camera behind John Garfield, we're meant to see Lana Turner from his point of view, i.e., we're meant to feel like underling hobos caught staring at a borderline deity. And yet, there's a pervasive feeling that he has a chance with her. Even though John Garfield is shamelessly staring, Lana Turner is shamelessly teasing him. They both know what they're doing, and they both like what the other one is doing. All of that is expressed in this frame, and that's what makes it so darn great. We could look at it for hours, but maybe that would be creepy. Next frame.
He's working pretty cheap. You know, that Los Angeles butcher's been cheating me.
Yes, I know. He's been charging you U.S. choice prices for U.S. goods.
Yeah, but we'll fix him.
This frame's a doozy because it so perfectly explains their marriage. Lana Turner's husband won't even turn around to talk to her. He's more interested in running his business than being an attentive husband. And look at Lana Turner's eyes. She's had just about enough of this. Her arms are crossed, she's frustrated, and she's having ideas, bad ones. The disparity in this couple's physical attractiveness is ridiculous. She's a hottie with a body, he's a fat schlub. He should worship her, but he's talking about beef prices. That's how Lana Turner sees their marriage. She's so much better than him and deserves so much more. So it's no accident that cinematographer Sidney Wagner, respect, would put a flight of stairs behind these two. She's framed in front of the top of the stairs, he's framed at the very bottom. She's above him, she's better than him. It is a slick way to reaffirm with imagery what we understand through dialogue and body language. It's clever filmmaking. Next frame.
We want to make a lot of money so we can buy lots of pretty clothes. Or maybe we want to put a little aside for our husband and us in our old age.
This is a 1940s passionate kiss, which means the man tries to eat the woman's mouth, pressing his face as hard against hers as possible. I'm joking, but that's what it looks like. Due to the Hays Code, movie kissing was heavily regulated, couldn't be too long, and tongue was totally out of the question. So how did they sell kisses back then? Well, the man presses really hard. He squeezes her arm, he brings her in real tight. The fact that their chests are touching is like, whoa. Of course, people didn't actually kiss like this in real life back then. This was just in the movies. That may be obvious to some of you, but I didn't know that for a long time. I thought kissing was just super weird until the 60s. And sidebar, when I was a little kid, I legitimately thought that the world was black and white before 1950 because all the movies back then were black and white. Was I stupid? Yeah, I mean, yeah, but wasn't childhood fun? I digress. This was a good kiss for back then and very abrupt in the narrative, so it catches you off guard. Lana Turner doesn't fight it, so you know she's into it. Not consent by today's standards, I understand that, but if she hadn't been into it and cared about her husband, she would have pulled away immediately and slapped John Garfield in the face. That's the 1940s way, but she didn't do that, so you know she's into it, and the story progresses that way. Next frame. Their eyes say everything we need to know. John Garfield's being all seducey-deucey. Lana Turner's playing hard to get, but John's smooth persistence wins her over. If we want to look at the deeper meaning of him lighting her cigarette, well, he's lighting her cigarette. He's turning her on. And despite her better judgment, she ultimately allows it. So this imagery acts as an analogy for the status of their relationship. It's classic Hollywood technique. It's very clever. And a quick shout out to the background. In the absence of color, shapes are what make a frame interesting. And the way that set designer Edwin B. Willis, respect, has dressed this room is subtle but masterful. It's a very convincing roadside restaurant kitchen. Next frame. This frame is a textbook example of low-key lighting, an attribute of most film noirs. Now, low-key lighting means high contrast, lots of shadows, and lots of shapes and patterns formed from those shadows. The low-key lighting style was derived from the Renaissance painting technique known as chiaroscuro, a style that uses strong tonal contrast between light and dark to create three-dimensional forms. And what we see here in this frame is pretty much that to a T. John and Lana's faces are mostly in shadow, but there's just enough light to make out their expressions, which are dramatic. The two are surrounded by darkness, and that gives us the feeling that they're alienated and in trouble. Of course, we know they're in trouble at this point in the story, but this lighting scheme makes us feel it. The darkness mimics the uncertainty of their situation. They don't know what's going to happen next. They can't see the road ahead of them. It's classic film noir. Next frame.
Now everybody's got something to celebrate. Frank, my boy, you're going to have a first-class job with the future. And I predict that as you get along in the world, you're going to lose that itchy in the feet. Cora, my dear, in the years to come, you'll thank me for this.
A little context for this shot. Lana's just been told by her husband that they're moving from Los Angeles to northern Canada to take care of her husband's paraplegic sister. And that was not a mutual decision they came up with together. He straight up just told her out of nowhere. So this frame acts as a reaction shot. She's staring in the direction of the camera, not directly at the lens, but the effect is almost the same. It looks like she's breaking the fourth wall and looking right at us as if to say, can you believe this shit? I can't help but think about John Krasinski from The Office giving his patented Jim look after Michael says or does something weird. It's the same effect, except in this case, it's super depressing. Anyway, we see her despondence and contempt written all over her face, and with an intimate portrait such as this, we have time to study her face and try to decipher the emotions that are written all over it. The frame may seem simple, but it communicates so much. It is elegant for that reason, and I love it. Next frame.
Time to go to the bank and get it. 5, if you got it, I'll come right out. If you haven't got it, sack it.
You know, Mr. Kennedy, it's really too bad that Frank was here, because if we had been alone, I feel...
This may not be the most aesthetically pleasing shot in the world, but there's a lot of suspense just in this image. Contextually, Chubb's fedora here is trying to extort Lana and John for just about every penny to their names. And he went so far as to pull a gun on them in their own home. But Lana and John are a smart couple by this point in the film. They don't even need to talk to each other to execute a plan. Lana has positioned herself within arm's reach of Chubb's by using her lady charms. It's a high-level femme fatale maneuver. She's making googly eyes at Chubb so as to distract him, and it's working. In the meantime, John is waiting for his opportunity to strike. He's looking at the gun, that's his target. And once he disarms him, he can take control of the situation. He just has to wait for Lana to make her move, and boy, does she make her move. I won't spoil the details, but I will say this. Chubbs does not have a chance against these two. They are dynamite. Next frame.
Once more. And then I promise that everything will be settled one way or the other before we come back.
I'll get the car, Cora.
Okay, so this shot is equal parts beautiful and ominous. Now, up to this point, Lana and John have gone to the beach quite a few times during the film. It's more or less their happy place. But every time they've gone to the beach beforehand, their establishing shot looks like this. But this time, they go to the beach and Lana's acting super sketchy, and their establishing shot now looks like this. Do you see the difference? The silhouette of the mountainside in the foreground is ominous. It's surrounding them. It makes it look as if there's no way out for them except the ocean, which is some big-time foreshadowing. I'm talking Big time. It's framing decisions like this that create suspense. We feel uneasy while looking at this shot, but as an audience, we don't know necessarily why we feel that way. And that's what makes it a smart and stylish shot. Next frame.
Kisses with dreams in them. Kisses that come from life, not death.
I hope I can wait.
Darling.
Let this be a warning to everyone. Do not make out and drive. It may seem like a fun idea at the time, but it's not a good move. These two were in the home stretch, and they had their happy ending right in front of them. But John got a little carried away. He took his eyes off the road for just long enough, and now one of them is going to pay for it. Or both of them. We don't exactly know what's going to happen. If someone's going to die or not, but from the look in Lana's eyes, we know it's not going to be pretty. Nevertheless, this frame is a classic example of how car scenes were shot back in the day. The camera was placed right on the hood so as to see the full flat interior of the car. It's very deliberate. It's meant to focus our attention on the people inside, and that's exactly what this shot does. We don't know what Lana and John see in front of them, but what we do see is them not paying attention to the road until the last second when it's clearly too late. So by watching their negligence and simultaneously not knowing what's in front of them, we feel quite a bit of suspense as the audience. And that's what makes this shot so darn effective. Last frame.
There's something about this that's like, well, it's like you're expecting a letter that you're just crazy to get. And you hang around the front door for fear you might not hear him ring.
So as we can see, John is behind bars, his appetite for murder has finally caught up to him, and he's cooked. Now what stands out the most in this shot are the shadows. Most obviously, the shadow of the prison bars. We also have the shadow of a head right next to those bars. Now that head shadow belongs to the DA who's come to accompany John to the gas chamber. He and his shadow symbolize the law, more or less, and he is closing in on John quite literally. He is right on his back. Now John's face is also casting a shadow against the wall. The expression of his face is one of relief. We won't spoil why, but information he just received has given him that relief. We see a version of him in this scene that is almost childlike. His impending death has softened him, but even still, the shadow of the murderous side of his psyche is still close by. It's quite literally next to him. It's tethered to him as a shadow is. His white shirt further expresses this duality. It symbolizes his newfound righteousness. We get a sense that he's back to his old self again, but his past still follows him. It's still connected to him. This is perhaps the most noir-y shot of the entire film, and it's fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those were 10 golden frames, and that's our show, which now brings me to my request for you. Yes, I'm talking to you. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. That will keep the lights on and the episodes coming. Pretend that I'm some sort of mutated millennial creature whose only sustenance is positive feedback on the internet. Spoiler alert, that's what I am. I appreciate you watching our show and spending your time with us. If you get a chance, watch The Postman Always Rings Twice. It's friggin' stellar. Until next time, keep watching movies.